as that what should I call it? Accept you fully, um, like be attracted to you, want to be seen with you, be seen in public with you. That's a common one with disabled people that I've experienced as a disabled person. Um, and being asexual and being disabled are two separate categories and two separate things. But as a disabled person and a person who identifies as asexual, it's commonly that when you're in those conversations and then they just drop, and I've noticed this too, they overcompensate with being blunt as being honest. And then they just drop something very personal about you, or that they want to get into business, right? And so then they just ask about a personal detail about you, um, and want to get to know what you're working with, and that's just disgusting. It's like, okay, that's not a conversation starter. That's not something that you want to get to know the person with about, or get to know them in general. And so, um, I just don't. I find that it's like, okay, is there so much more we can talk about? There's more things to do. You know, go out to a movie, go out to eat. Just get to know the person. But it just seems like a very, um, I guess, uh, foreign idea to the individual. That going out on a date seems to be a, an issue in which they don't want to fathom their ideology around, or it give you subtle hints that they're just looking for no strings attached. And as asexual people, um, I mean, that's not the focus of asexuality and being. It could. I mean, there's various forms of it. There's different, I guess, shades of it. But just not wanting to, just be out there and open about your sexuality, or just even displaying your affection for somebody in that way. Um, and then they just automatically assume something's wrong with you, or that you have some mental disorder. Again, two separate issues. And it's like, okay, well, why can't we go out and do this thing, or go for a walk and then do something out in the open? Because even when you get to a certain age, or when you get older, that most of that stuff, the attraction is going to die down, the appeal is going to die down, um, and then all you have left is your bond, your affection for the person, and what you do in your retirement, which is what I've noticed with a lot of older gay men in my in Palm Springs in the community, who are retired, or who have outlived their partners or are single. Um, that they have this ideology of what they want, and so they go for the person that they feel is unattainable, and then their whole entire ego is based on the unattainable person, and whether or not they can get with that person, and that person might not share the same exact feelings, or and the might be drastically different, um, personality wise, hobby wise, or even culturally, um, that they just don't want to be in a scenario or a situation with you. Or and then you have the opposite, where you're older, and um, the individual is looking to get spoiled, and or is a gold digger, and so they want that kind of relationship. And that for me just seems like a very weird relationship dynamic, in which I feel like, come on, I mean, I'm in my 30s, my late 30s, my mid 30s, and it's like, is there anything new to this? Is there anything to look forward to? Because if that's your whole contents or your whole character, then what is there to in the future? I mean, if you're looking for now and live in the now, and that's why I said there, a self defense mechanism is always brought up, and you see, especially in bar situations, like for example, if you go to Palm Springs and Hunters, that's a good example, Hunters, and or some of the gay clubs down there, trunks that used to be open at the time, and you get these men who just want to flat out, they're just looking for action. They go to the bar, and it's been noted that they're not very female friendly, or especially bachelorette friendly, because they feel like those spaces are their safe zones. So a lot of gay men go to the bars because they have those safe zones, and when they get those safe zones, they shun everybody else out. Or if you're a heterosexual male at a bachelorette party with your friend and you're an ally of the gay community, but you don't want to be with a person because you're not gay. And then they treat you terribly, or those bar situations. I mean, they start offering you drinks, and then that situation gets worse. And that's what I've noticed a lot in those bar scenarios. When I was in Hunters, they told me I had a guy who was bartender's friend, and he tried to roofie me, and I refused to back down and not let it go. And they tried to cover up. They tried to flag my Yelp posts, and they tried to pretty much make it look like I was psychologically crazy. He guy tried to get me evicted from my apartment because he also was my neighbor. So he contacted me on a dating site, and then he um, was told on the dating site, no, I need to set a boundary with you. And then goes in and tries to get me evicted. Um, did not follow through at the location in which they tried to get me evicted. And then they saw me 4 years later after I moved away and came back, and I was in the area. They tried to get me evicted again, and this time they almost successfully succeeded. And they, of course, when you brought it to their attention, denied it all, played dumb, played stupid. But you imagine this person who has revenge posts, and claims he is a New Yorker at heart. So, as the New York mentality, the person, this is California and San Francisco's area, right? So they have rival cities going on. New York specifically, you see those things in which you hear about New York fights on the street. Somebody from the Bronx, they handle it their way, usually with their fist, and that New Yorker kind of mentality. But San Francisco is a very different place, and they handle it a little bit differently. I mean, my mom used to work BART. She used to go BART down there and work in the city, and there would be crazy homeless people just swinging. And she got mugged one day, um, that way, just walking around the corner. The guy didn't really steal from her; he just whacked her, um, because he was, I guess, crazed, and in his one of his rants, and accidentally whacked my mom while she was walking to the BART train home from work. She got out of the situation real quick, um, and got away from it. But again, the situation is different because Palm Springs is a retirement community, and it's a retirement community that is driven around it, and mostly it's Western. So you get a lot of those cowboys and Western themes going on. It's hundreds, usually around the summer. It's kind of Arizona mentality, and a lot of people from Arizona move there because they have the similar heat, similar situations. And what I've noticed too when I was living down there, that people from Arizona were actually moving back to Arizona, because of the conditions of California. The the conservatives were not feeling as comfortable being in the area because of all the things going on with Trump, and MAGA and Kamala Harris. As you show in the election, it was about 70 to 80% in Harris's favor in California. And so there were a lot of people feeling threatened. And as a Democrat who voted Democrat, but I was on the fence around the border of who I was supported. I feel like I did my job. I voted for the person, didn't win. Now I'm ready to just move on, get over it. I don't feel like a lot of people have that same um, mental state. I feel like they're still catastrophizing. They're still in the shock and awe because of what the media wanted you to believe, opposed to what was reality. Because all the media told us that Kamala was winning. Kamala was ahead in the polls. Kamala was doing well. Again, those are also people who showed up early to the voting too. So, I mean, obviously they wanted everybody to believe that. Um, I again, there's a lot of things that Trump has said that I do agree with. There's a lot of things that I was told to believe, to be part of a party in which was not willing to support me and was ready to throw me under the bus when they were when it came to the legal system, when it came to job rights or civil rights, especially applying to the disabled. A lot of things that they were pushing around Project 2025, which seemed to be, again, the state investigators and everybody else who was Democrat was saying that. Um, and that's what people wanted you to believe, that it was the other party. And then it came to the point where we can't celebrate holidays or be with your family members. And this has been stated with like Thanksgiving. People have been disinvited from their Thanksgiving for who they voted for. And although my dad, who didn't speak politics and wouldn't bring it up, who is a Republican and has mentioned implications, although he doesn't like to talk about it and doesn't bring it up, um, and my grandmother, who is also Republican, um, it's not something that they constantly bring up in every conversation. And so it comes to the point, and like even when I was in Arizona, not a single person brought up Trump. Not a single person brought up the election. Um, I think people are just ready to move on. Um, what I see down here is constant statements about Kamala, constant statements about Trump, constant attacks on Trump. And because I share his culture, and because I kind of appear red hair like him and have mannerisms, I guess, like Trump, I'm constantly the target of threats, constant the targets of being shamed, alienated by my gay community members. In addition to me being an asexual individual, I'm also on the autism spectrum. And so I come to video gaming here and I get told by Democrats um, that I have terrible content, that I will never make it, that AI did my music, just because I went to school for it. I know how to edit. I also know how to record myself and record my music. Which again, somebody who else who is in that field who didn't get those opportunities will falsely accuse you of being terrible so they can push their own ideology for competitive um, reasons. And so, again, I'm an asexual identified person. I really don't find um, that sex is something that somebody should talk about, including gender issues. Um, And I just don't think that's everything and that makes somebody else. As my grandmother always said, and her old stance of being older generation is that you let people get to know you first before you go and shove your whole entire self into somebody's face and demand that they accept it when people have limits. My mother, Republican, who changed Democrat when Obama was around, um, again, people forget too that George W. Bush passed the American Disability Act. They always focus on him doing Don't Say Gay when, in some senses, when you're in the military and you reveal you're gay, it's like, okay, well, and how is that going to affect you on the battlefield? Because when we're here and we want you to defend your army, we don't want you to talk about, his leotard or the way that their hair is styled, and then it could be insulting to the country or embarrassing, right? Kim Jong Un, for example, is a person who made it illegal to copy his hairstyle in his own country. Imagine somebody like that going into the war and then insulting Kim Jong Un and starting a war. Now, to say one person can start a war might be ridiculous, but history and has shown that Kim Jong Un would start a war even over the Interview movie. So, um, Putin again does the same thing. He puts there's hints that, and there has been talk that he puts gay people like me in concentration camps down there. Um, Now there's the previous leader was Rasputin after before Stalin. So Stalin, and I think Rasputin was a leader or he was some kind of important character. Um, there was a joke about him in one of the Gentlemen movie about being bisexual, which I don't know if that's true, but if it is, maybe that's the reason that Putin and Stalin are trying to get rid of that, just like Trump is, that importance to emphasize that in their military. Because, I mean, in the long run, how's that going to affect your ability to fight? Your qualifications, which is what it's all about. Are you qualified to be here? Are you qualified to fight for your country and sacrifice yourself for the country? We don't need to know what color nail polish you have. We don't need to know what magenta eyeshadow that you need to match your uniform. We're here to fight and we're make sure that you're sacrificing for your country. And that's exactly what it is. My grandfather was Lieutenant Colonial of the Space Systems Division, World War II, and he worked directly with John Glenn. Um, and I think he was head mechanic and initiated the countdown. But again, it's like he even was very you are to be seen and not heard in his household. Um, Whining and complaining was just not something he did. But what he did for me was he bought me National Geographics, right? Because he knew I wanted to be an artist. So he would buy me National Geographic magazines to get me to know the world, know what the conditions of the world are, and as well to see art and beauty in the world because he, being in World War II, knew the ugliness that could also be there. So he was buying me all these magazines, showing me cultures, informing me about the world, teaching me history. The only the criticism my mother had with that was that I was quite young and I didn't know how to read. Um, but as he knew, you see it for the pictures, right? And then you were there to see it for the world and see the other conditions of the world. Um, My grandfather was a very private man who had an arsenal of guns in his own home, and he was getting ready for the Third War. Um, as a person who struggles post traumatic stress. Um, so, and my grandmother, he was taking care of my grandmother, who was also paralyzed on the left side from her stroke, and she got paralyzed around my age. Um, and she used to smoke about 5 packs, um, a, a large amount of packs of cigarettes during a time in which it was glamorous to smoke. Um, so that caused her heart to give out, and that caused her to have a stroke, and it caused her to be paralyzed on the left side. She was unable to, and they had to cut her diaphragm. So she lost her ability. She was an opera singer. She lost her ability to sing. She lost her ability to hold water. She lost her ability to speak. She lost her ability to walk. Um, my grandfather resuscitated her when the men could call the shots for women's rights. Um, and my grandmother would not let him live it down because she didn't want to live like that. Until she was 80 or 90, she would tell my mom how miserable she was. My mom kept her healthy, kept her in a retirement community, took care of her, on top of taking care of her disabled son. Um, so, I mean, and that's kind of the background of where I come from and the contents of my character. But when it comes to the contents of where I come from opposed to where I am now, when it comes to asexuality, it's not really your sexuality doesn't define you, and I don't feel like that should be the emphasis on anybody, because you don't see heterosexual straight folks go around and say, I'm heterosexual, accept it. I mean, it's just not something that happens. I mean, there's Bible quotes, but they're not saying I'm straight, accept it, get over it. Um, it's like they're more saying, is there more to you? Is there more to your substance, or is that all you want to present to the world? Because of that, there's limits where people have, and that's fair because everybody has limits. Um, and Republican or Democrat aside, that shouldn't matter when it comes to the war or coming to the workplace and or housing or um, I think it should be based on qualifications. Now there are times, and it's harder nowadays because everybody quotes and runs to prejudice when they claim something's prejudice when it isn't, and so um, that's when it becomes a situation where nobody. It's like crying wolf, right? Um, Everybody sees their situation. They think, oh, well, they claim it's prejudice. They want to be part of something. They want to experience that experience of being discriminated against and playing the victim. And that's what you see a lot in some movements that um, Johnny Depp and Marilyn Manson have brought to the light. Is that they want to experience that, but if you look at the conscience of the other person, which they tell you not to look into, um, those victims. For example, the situation with Lizzo, the girl, who signed up and she knew what she signed up for. Was there? She had a history of doing like fellatio and bananas, and she had a history of doing weirdly odd, weird things. And Lizzo did mention that in the defense for herself, that she signed up for it. She knew what she was doing. Um, it's like somebody going into the porn industry, knowing what they signed up for, and then complaining when the editor or them doesn't put them in films and or doesn't cast them with somebody that they're attracted to or like, and that's the industry. That's it's and including beauty. It's a very ugly business. It's not as glamorous and beautiful as you think. Um, and so that's why I said, like, when you see those things, and they think all these macho men in these films, and including those films, um, they're wearing makeup, they're airbrushed, their blemishes are hidden, they're bleaching them, certain portions of them, to appeal to who's viewing them, because they don't want to embarrass themselves like that, right? And so it's just hard when you know that, when you know how ugly those businesses are. That's the point. It's like, it's really ugly, it's really gross, it's really all the stuff they have to do in order to get that pretty. And then you meet them, and it's like, okay, you see them in these films, you see the celebrity, this macho man celebrity, and you find out that they're not the macho guy in which they present themselves as. Because the problem is, it's called acting. People forget it. It's make believe. It's not real. They're putting on a character. Um, Same thing with those, when people play horror film characters. Um, Odin's son, for example, from Thor, the guy who played Odin, his son played Pennywise, and they forget that that's a make believe character. They're putting on monster makeup. They're putting on make believe clothes sewn to present a character. And we live in times where everything is sensitive or on eggshells, and that we feel like we're almost walking on grenades every moment we walk outside. And that's not a fun feeling. That's why everybody's tense, why everybody's on edge, why everybody's fearful. And so when you talk about the election and you talk about that, and they're saying we're Democrats messed up, that could be a place to start. I mean, that's where they could have messed up. Um, or when they selectively choose who they want to support. For example, there's only disabled people. It's protected in all 50 states. All 50 states. LGBT rights, there are only a few states that fully acknowledge complete protections. California is one of them. Um, Arizona's, I don't think they have passed gay marriage there, or it's fairly new, a new idea to them. As my dad says, they're constantly in the Stone Age there when it comes to certain rights. But then I've noticed also that Arizona tends to be more friendly. I think they have that country friendliness that goes on, that you don't see in big city mentalities. That the big city, it's like they always feel it's like Gotham City. I mean, the reason Gotham City is based on real cities is that's experiences which are possible in big cities. People mugging people on the streets, people mugging people on the train, um, being jumped randomly, turning around a corner. In country scenarios, it's not as frequent. And even the way they portray rednecks is, it's just like, okay, that's really really dumb. It's like the stereotypes of redneck people, and then when a zombie apocalypse comes around, who is the first person you want protecting you? A redneck. Like the scenarios are a cowboy or a sheriff, like a small town sheriff. those are the people that you run to protect you, because of the fact that in big city situations, they're usually giant hordes, right, on one area at one time. And country, it's big open spaces, wide open fields, um, farmers who know how to farm, who also know how to survive. And so those are the people you run to. Um, Big city people usually, um, everything is handed to them in every corner, especially New York. One of my high school teachers, she loved New York because every corner had a Starbucks, and so she was obsessed with Starbucks. So she would like to try them at every corner. Um, the lady was very cool, um, but um, you could tell she was a little over caffeinated. um, she was a great teacher. She taught World Civ. Um, yeah, she was great. And then the upper man teacher that I had, she was an old English style teacher, taught me economics, and um, she was more one of my favorite teachers. She was very, very helpful. She sat down and made sure that you succeeded. She was a specialized teacher in a specialized class. So she, like I said, old English style teacher who very much cared about her students. Where you had the other teacher who wanted to be fun, outgoing, but she had her favorites and she picked her favorites. Where this teacher, she didn't pick favorites, but she really wanted the best for you. And then you had my theater teacher who taught English too. He was very openly spoken about his Aztec heritage, um, but he was very like Severus Snape too when it came to getting things done, making sure that you obeyed the rules, and also the stage actor. Um, very good actor. One of the top acting schools in the area. It was well known for it. um, and he would always encourage me to try out the plays. But if, like I said, if you misbehave in his class, you were late, you didn't do something right, he would not filter himself and make sure that you were there. Um, and the other English teacher was he was the video and film teacher. So um, and he was very, him and his wife was a black woman. She was had a son. They had a son who was interracial. And he was very open to other communities and embracing them, while also not losing the professional English teacher approach that you would expect out of an English teacher. But he would provide materials to read, which like of Mice and Men, um, all these things that get really people to think about stories and the hero cycle and getting through things. Um, so it was like I said, it was quite a different time than it is now. And I think we lost a lot of that, which is why people think, where did the Democrats mess up? Well, we didn't have all that stuff. Like when Obama was president, there wasn't a lot of those issues starting to brew up until um, the COVID hit, and and then all the people were offended that they were claiming his rigged election, and there wasn't a lot of supporting evidence to that. But now that Trump won, and as they're going through the sorting process, and it looks like he won without interference of any shape and form, because the Democrats were in fact in charge of the FBI and making sure that um, um, Putin was in check, and he was also initiating wars with other people. It's really hard for me to believe that Russia had interference in this election. And maybe, and I mean, the election was close. I mean, the states were percentage wise close to turning in Columbus' favor by 2 or 3% at some times. But I think where we went wrong is that, I mean, if you look at all this stuff, and nobody can separate politics. Every conversation we have results in blaming Donald J. Trump, or and it's like, okay, well, Trump has no effect on this friendship, no effect on this family. Um, I mean, how is it going to change what we're doing at this present moment? And what we need now, he's over there. He's only one person. He's only one man. Same with Kamala. I mean, Kamala has already openly acknowledged that she believes that the election wasn't rigged. She believes that that's what the people wanted. She didn't want to recount. Obama has encouraged people to keep fighting, and a lot of people, including Democrats, are offended by it. But it's like, where are we going to go from here? Um, but again, asexuality and the gay community and bisexuality, which is often shunned out, um, this is why people are concerned, and a lot of it had to do with other communities which they associate to, um, and educational fields and education, who are focusing on the wrong subject matters, in which we're not supposed to be. Politics is one of them. It's like, okay, well, that's government, real civ, of course, but people are forgetting in history where history comes from. We're focusing on who we're hanging out with and our appearance. For example, our nails, getting them did, or what eyeshadow they wear to school, including the males. And that's not where our focuses need to lie. That's why people are very concerned about the future. Um, our the future of our next generation. um, what are we supposed to focus on? I mean, you're not focusing on your studies. And then on top of that, you have AI, which can do all your work for you now, can solve all of your problems. So, computers, they help you with typing. I mean, they help you with all this stuff. But where are we going to go in the future with AI who can learn everything about you? And are replacing employees, replacing baggers, replacing, um, and causing people to lose their jobs, which is why homelessness is going up. I mean, bagging jobs used to be prominent jobs for disabled people, where they would get those jobs or help with the carts, and it would help curb homelessness on the street. But now we have technology, which is why all this stuff is rising, because we have to afford those things, and then they cut back worker force and experience, and it's like, where are we now? Um, where's our future going? I mean, one of the prominent things about World War II was when all the men were out serving the war, it showed that women can come into the workforce, and that, I think that was maybe the time of the women's suffrage. I could be wrong on that one, and I don't want to misquote history, especially when I was talking about where history was. But they were that's where Rosie the Riveter came in, and they were really helping men fight in war with the parachutes. I think the museum down here in Palm Springs museum, they have a parachute dress that was made out of parachutes. Um, and that's, like I said, that's where we were opposed to where we have come. And that was not a lot of the focus. Even when they were doing all those things, they weren't focusing on that stuff. They were focusing on going to their job and making sure our country was safe. And that's what we saw a lot in the this election too. The people, because the quote was "Make America Great Again" or "Make America Safe Again," right? And so they were trying to go back to that. But what the media is telling us is what they want us to be afraid, afraid of the imaginary thing before us, the thing that we haven't seen, opposed to what we can see in front of our eyes. Oh, anyways, uh, thank you. This is my 2 cents for the day. Um, my stream, why I'm here video gaming, my short video vlog, and just chatting along, maybe to meet new people. Um, Follow and subscribe if you wish. And thank you for tuning in or taking the time. You have a wonderful day.